Lightning McQueen once said, "Speed. I am speed." And truth be told, I took that to heart. My star technology base might be fast, but is it speed? No, not yet. To make our machines even faster, we need ultimate voltage technology. A tech tier that will require us to create elements inside of particle accelerators. We're talking about them weird ones at the bottom of the table that have names like Americium because apparently elements need to be named after countries now. This will be by far the most expensive technology jump we will ever have to do. And the only question is whether or not I'll still be the same after it. The first of the bottom of the barrel elements is samarium, and thankfully it doesn't actually come from reactors, but it is used to craft them. And since we'll need tons of Mark II reactors today, we're gonna need a lot of it. We need to run bastonite ore through an ore processing plant which will produce some rare earth dust that we can then centrifuge for a myriad of small piles of dusts, including our ever-needed samarium. Small piles are no use to us though, so we'll need to send exactly 4 of them at a time to a packer machine, and we can use a robot arm to keep that limit going. We will need a fast supply of rare earth, which comes from the bastonite processing, but this is also our 3rd time doing bastonite processing, so we should be okay. Maybe? Possibly? Please? But while we're on the path of some small base improvements for more reactors, let's reorganize our Nequata line storage to be inside of drawers and even quickly set up a Nequadria ingot passive since we're gonna start needing those. And the last thing we'll want to do before whipping up some more reactors is phosphorus. Just another relatively small automation line as well. Pop some apatite ore in the processing plant and electrolyze all the different dusts it produces. Each one seems to contain a little bit of phosphorus, so we should be able to make plenty. And now we can comfortably craft a Mark I reactor that we're going to use to research a Mark II reactor with. And of course that's going to take a long time, just in time for our samarium processing line to break and require me to repair it by adding a buffer chest to stop a small edge case of bad luck, meaning the centrifuge fills up with only 5 out of the 6 possible metals and stops working. And now that the rare earth processing is working, we run out of it, which we can address by adding in a more direct processing line of bastonite, a centrifuge and a macerator combo to extract rare earth at a much higher rate than just the ore processing plant. And hey, since we're still waiting to perform research, we may as well pass up the PCB coolant since we'll be researching more than just the Mark II reactor today, and running out of the coolant means we'll burn up our research machines, and they're still stupid expensive. We'll want to combine toluene and benzene to make biphenyl dust, which we can react with chlorine to make polychlorinated biphenyl, and finally, by adding some distilled water, we make our PCB coolant. Now that we have the coolant and the Mark I reactor to research, I realize we need to up the voltage of the research machine to ZPM, and figure if I'm messing with energy hatches, I may as well push the large chemical reactor in the clean room to UV for extra tier overclocking. Our research begins in our Mark II reactor, and by the time I'm done encoding all the recipes needed for it, it's finished. And now that means we have a massive craft schedule, especially since the Mark II reactor casings are very much not cheap. In fact, we don't even have enough resources to schedule the craft, and I officially need to increase our buffers. Worse than that, if we were to craft all of the europium for a Mark II reactor on demand, it would take 4 hours. And I would like to eventually release this video, so we should probably get to passiving it. I'd like to add 2 more reactors to passive europium, and we don't really have the island space for that. But if we extend the island any further, I'll be outside of the range of my wireless AE terminal, so naturally, it's time that we craft the infinite range card for our wireless system. It's not expensive for us anymore. We have the netherite and means to make ender eyes. In fact, I don't even know why I waited so long for this. But now, with infinite range, we can have an infinite island and more reactors! Wait, chlorine? We're out of chlorine? Oh, yeah, we're still only making it at MV. Okay, well that sucks. All we really need to do is pump out salt into an IV electrolyzer, and it'll barf out more chlorine than we could possibly use. We're still missing loads of resources needed to make even a Mark I reactor. So, you know, this is gonna suck. But not for you. What was hours of waiting for materials is only a blink of an eye for you. Don't say I never did anything for you. But now we can add another Mark I reactor to the base, and even easier if I use a copy-paste gadget. Well, it would be if I actually had the blocks in my inventory, but, you know, anyways. Our new reactor is still only half the battle of europium passiving, as we don't have a passive supply of neodymium to make it. It's not too bad, though. Just an EPF for neodymium ingots and an extractor for the liquid. And after forgetting to unpause my recording, we now have not 1, but 2 Mark I reactors chugging away, making us some highly radioactive soup. But what's one highly radioactive soup when you can have many? And I was smart enough to begin crafting a Mark II reactor in the background, which is now ready, or at least I thought it was. Even though I'm pretty sure I built it right, CPM tier hatches and all the juicy Mark II casings, it won't assemble. I spent 30 minutes stumped until I realized I just made the wrong tier of coils for it. We need fusion coils, and they need radon gas, and guess what? We're out of it. Now, luckily, we don't need to just wait around for our ender air processing to make more, as we can directly craft it. All we have to do is run plutonium ingots and uranium dust through a chemical reactor, and it'll spit out plutonium dust and radon gas. Since the plutonium is recycled, the only thing we actually have to passive here is uranium, and I've already passived that. There we go. Infinite radon, and now a Mark II reactor. Within it, let's make Darmstadtium, the UV tier casing metal. It's made of liquid arsenic and ruthenium, so we'll have to have a passive supply of both, which is pretty easy. Arsenic dust we can get from cobaltite dust, something we already have in droves, and it can be extracted directly. And ruthenium dust we already have passived, all we have to do is smelt it into ingots and extract it. Boom! Infinite Darmstadtium. But that's not the only new metal we need for UV. In fact, we need two more from the Mark II reactors, americium and tritanium. So we're a long way from done with the Mark II reactors. Actually, a really long way. In fact, we even need to make lutetium and duranium, which are Mark I reactor materials. So we need even more Mark I reactors. Christ. Well, might as well start with tritanium, for no real reason. But for that, we need duranium. So instead of directly working on that, I decided to take a side quest to upgrade our research since we'll need it for later. Truly, I don't even know how my brain works, but in the end, I've scheduled reactor parts and research parts. While that goes, I need to add some ways to manage how much fluid we pipe into our reactors, as at the moment, it'll just consume a basically infinite amount of resources because the hatches are so big. Now, it should be noted that what I do here is really stupid, and I do later go back and do it properly with fluid regulators and interfaces, but for some reason my P-brain compels me to put a storage bus on the input hatch of the reactor tuned to a specific fluid, and then put a machine control on the extractor with a level emitter to read how much fluid is inside of the input hatch and throttle the reactor based on that. There's no buffer storage, there's no fluid regulation, it's just a weird and somewhat non-functional way of monitoring fluid levels. It's fine, I fix it off camera. Oh, and our research bits are done by now, and I add them to the HPCA. It should be noted that this isn't even enough research for the UV energy hatch that we want, so I have no idea why I did this now, but I guess it'll take less time later? I don't know. This part of Gregtech is so full of waiting around it makes my ADHD go feral. And I just start jumping around like one of those crusty white dogs after it gets into your weird aunt's caffeine pills. You know, the ones that go like, "Arr, arr, arr." But the laundry list of small issues continues to grow as we're always out of tritium, so I want to get that way faster. And something I did broke our epoxy production, which is really bad as all of our circuits use it like crazy. This place is getting really hard to debug now, but it looks like something broke our phenol production. Honestly, while writing the script, I don't even remember what broke it. I just remember that it was phenol, so I don't know, here's some footage of me making phenol. I've only made like 3 reactors so far, and I'm already losing my mind or whatever slop was left of it. And at some point during this resource drought, I make another EBF for trinium since we're making a bit more of a trinium sulfide than one single EBF can handle, but really not enough for 2, so it's still slow as hell. So I have to hurry up and wait for more. And after another heat death of the universe, we can finally eke out another reactor to combine titanium and uranium into tritanium. And hey, we should be able to make a UV technology with this. You know, maybe if I make a little UV robot arm holding that would make me feel better. You know, something to show for the countless hours. Oh, wait, nope, I need americium. Okay, so still need another Mark I and II reactor to even smell UV technology. And of course, we're out of tritium again. Well, I didn't want to have to do this, but there is a way to make even more tritium. The chemical plant. We'll need to make PEEK casings for it, and those require the chemical polyether ether ketone, which comes from 4.4 difluorobenzene and disodium sulfide dust. But since I'm not passiving this, I can just jam a bunch of crafting patterns into my system and not worry about having to pronounce weird chemical names. But don't worry, if you want to hear me fumble chemical names, there's plenty more later. The chemical plant, however, is really cool. In it, we can take complex processing lines like the Naquata line and completely perform it in one single step over seconds. In goes the fluoromantic acid and aquata dust, and out comes all of the hydrogen, fluorine, and antimony needed to make the fluoromantic acid, and all the products of the aquata line. Literally all of them in perfect dust form. We can even use another chemical plant to craft the fluoromantic acid in one step too. These things are so useful. Though it did take me a stupid amount of time to get the inputs and outputs correct, and as much as I'd like to say it's because of how difficult it is for these machines to make, it's only because I was distracted by an especially creepy episode of the Magnus Archives. The one about the Claymaker's Apprentice. Rest assured that during all the footage you're watching here, I'm binging all 5 seasons of the Magnus Archives, which honestly probably did not help me with my sanity. But hey, now we can make more reactors. Yay! More reactors! Before americium, we need lutetium, which is made from liquid lanthanum and silicon. Lanthanum comes from our rare earth processing, and silicon we can make into ingots in the EPF and extract like normal. But of course, lutetium is only part of americium, and now I get to wait for another Mark II reactor. 3 of these in one day is enough to kill greater men than me, and yet here I am, waiting to be put out of my misery. And misery it is, because guess what? We're now out of argon. Great. The only way we can get argon is by distilling liquid air. There's no special processing here. Instead, we need to make a parallel distillation tower to speed this up. And for that, we need more watertight steel, which guess what? We don't have a recipe for. Probably because we can't fit it in our ABS. So I have to craft another alloy blast smelter. So I don't know, while that works, I boost our current argon production to IV. Will this help us in the long run? No. Does it make me feel good? Kind of. Hey, but at least we have our next alloy blast smelter. I just gotta build it. It's not forming. What? I've got all the right blocks, all the coils. Nothing's inside of it that shouldn't be. Come on, maintenance hatch, muffler hatch. All the inputs and outputs are right, yeah? What, is the game broken or... Oh, wait, no, I'm using an item output, not a fluid one. 1,000 days of Gregtech. And I'm still using the wrong inputs and outputs. Get even better. We're out of aluminum. This mod pack, it's a prison. Fine. I'll process ruby ore at IV tier for faster aluminum and chromium production. It's fine. And now that we finally have aluminum again, we can make watertight steel in order to make the parallel distillation tower. And of course, we can also make a very fast gas collector and freezer to make the liquid air that gets distilled into buckets and buckets and buckets and buckets of argon and all those other gases too, I guess, but I don't really care about that. But guess what? Now our titanium supply is crippled for some reason, so we need to add a new processing line using titanium trifluoride we get from the aquata line. I'm turning into the Joker! And now we're just out of tritium again. I took a walk in real life to pass the time, and that wasn't even enough to get all the tritium we needed. But that doesn't concern you, my little content goblins, does it? No, all you care about is we finally can make another Mark II reactor and juice it up with chromium and lutetium. Finally, Darmstadium, Tritanium, and Americium are all passive. But not for 1 second can I win, as our duranium production is really slow. I mean, maybe I can go ahead and overclock its reactor with ZPM energy hatches? The answer is no! Well, I may as well cope with all this by finally crafting up a UV robot arm, which, of course, I screw up the recipe for, but hey, that's an easy fix, and I finally at least have something to show for what we've been doing for the last 100 hours of my life, or at least it feels like. And even better, we can now make the UV assembler for the ultimate voltage coils we'll need, so we can encode the last of the UV microparts for now, which need their own research, of course, but oh, does it feel good to hold a UV assembler.
Look at him go.
Can't power it though, and Prismalium, the UV wire, is very, very expensive, and honestly, we should probably passive it and Dragon Steel, because, well, I should have been passiving wire since the very beginning, but for some reason, I haven't. Oh, it's never too late to teach an old dog new tricks, or whatever they say. Or maybe it is, because I do this without any planning. So after just crafting and crafting and crafting, I jammed together a chain of 8 EBFs, deciding that was going to be at all relevant. I figured that not using an alloy blast smelter would be fine. Might as well passive direct from dusts, you know? And speaking of dust, if we're gonna passive Prismalium, Dragon Steel, and Twinite, we're gonna need a lot of dust. Like silver, tin, copper, and gold, all of which are the easiest to do, as we can just extract them directly from ores with a forge hammer and an ore washer. Diamond and ender pearl dust are also super easy, as all we have to do is macerate the respective items, but lead dust is a little bit more of a pain. The most direct method is smelting galena ore and then macerating the lead ingots. It's kind of slow, but I kind of don't care. So far, we've done our processing lines at HV since it's free, but I'd like to do the actual alloy mixing at least IV. It's still inexpensive and it's pretty fast, so prepare your brains for the great alloying. Copper and silver mix into electrum, copper and electrum mix into black bronze, redstone, copper, and silver make signalum, shellite comes from signalum and black bronze, ender pearl, diamond, and lead make enderium, glowstone, silver, and tin make lumium, lumium and enderium makes twinite, and from here, we need better tier mixers, so we may as well go to ZPM. But there's an odd quirk of making the dusts directly. It's that dragon steel needs sunflower oil. Okay, well, maybe we can automate sunflowers in the large farm? No! Okay, maybe we can automate sunflowers by sifting dirt automatically? I mean, we just need to macerate plant balls into biochaff and biochaff into dirt, and we can put them in the sifter, and that's really slow. You know what? I'm just gonna use an alloy blast smelter. So, tungsten, twinite, and shellite makes dragon steel, and Nequata, shellite, and tungsten carbide makes prismalium, which takes over 20 minutes to craft, but hey, it's passive. And in a moment of sunk cost fallacy, I decided to use one of the 8 EBFs I made to smelt twinite. I don't rightly know why I felt the need to do at least something with them, but hey, you know what? All the dusts for the various wire metals are now passived. That's a major detour just to power a single UV assembler, but here we are. Now that we can finally power it, we can make the ultimate voltage coils for UV energy hatches. But we're not done yet. We need to research the energy hatches, and the research requires at least 64 computation per tick. But one HPCA can only make up to 48 computation per tick. So we need to make an entire other HPCA. But Batman, my uranium passive is broken. Batman, I'm out of uranium. I have to fix the uranium, Batman. And then I have to wait for another crafting apocalypse once more. And here it is, second HPCA. Jump scare, 2 HPCAs can't be directly connected to one another. No, that would be too easy. Instead, we need an entirely new multi-block for research called the network switch, which can bridge multiple HPCAs together at the cost of my sense of self. It needs to be researched and have its recipes encoded, and even better, it takes titanium tier resources, so I can just barely afford it. In fact, it needs a duranium alloy, and all of our duranium is funneling into tritanium, and I don't think I can bring myself to make more reactors today, so I just throttle the tritanium production early to build up some duranium. But hey, as long as this takes, we're making more prismalium and dragon steel. Woo! Jump scare part 2 though, the duranium alloy, it needs tritanium coils. Great! A new EBF coil just to screw with the pacing. These guys will take forever to craft in our dinky 1-block assembler, but at least you guys have editing, so now we can smelt our resources to make the network switch to combine 2 HPCAs together to research 1 UV energy hatch. But in order to even research at this tier of technology, because of course we're not done yet, we need a data module, which requires wetware circuit boards. That requires a sterile clean room, and our clean room is just a regular one. And to even make wetware circuit boards, we need meat. Infinite meat. It's wetware time, baby! The trouble is, sterile clean rooms are really expensive, and we can only afford a 5x5 one right now. And seeing as we still need to be able to get inside of it with all the machines, this is going to be a real test of my space management. It should be noted that I could have made it taller than 5 blocks, but honestly, my brain was rotting out of my ears at this point, and I kind of wanted to give myself a little challenge. But what are we even going to make in here? Sterile growth medium, the basis for all meat. But when a processing tree looks like this, we're in for a treat. Especially because to grow the meat, we need the meat, and the only source of meat is fish. There's a weird fishing machine that takes 10 seconds to run and requires a 5x5 water source beneath it, but worst of all, it needs string to run. String is, well, really hard to passive. At first I thought it was going to be easy, of course, just make it from flax, but there's no way to auto-craft it into string. So, well, we might as well go the Greggy route. After all, I'm sure you're all itching to hear me mispronounce lengthy chemical names. So, you're in luck. We'll need to make nitrous oxide and then react it with chlorine to create nitrosyl chloride. And we'll also need to react hydrogen and benzene in the presence of nickel to create cyclohexane. Combining the nitrosyl chloride and the cyclohexane creates cyclohexanone oxime dust. Then a dip in some sulfuric acid creates caprolactam dust, which we have to root into a full-on EBF with nitrogen to cook it into polycaprolactone ingots, which we can finally mill into string. It's easy, right? Let's get the cats. Well, now that we've automated fish, we can grind them up into little meat piles and small bits of bone meal that we'll send into a packer to create full bone meal items. With the meat flowing, it's time to move into our new clean room to begin the agar processing line. Well, almost time. I forgot that we didn't have phosphoric acid passived, and we're gonna need that, but it's an easy job in a large chemical reactor. Okay, now we're ready. Minced meat and bone meal is combined with sulfuric acid to make collagen dust, and then the collagen and phosphoric acid come together to make the gelatin mixture. We really need the gelatin hidden inside of that liquid, so we'll spin it out with a centrifuge, and this is about the time where I realized that doing all this at IV tier is really slow. So instead, I spend an hour waiting on a bunch of ZPM tier machines to craft, just to replace what we already made and keep going. The gelatin mixture spins down into gelatin, which we autoclave with distilled water for agar dust. Now that agar needs to be mixed with salt, mincemeat, and calcium, as well as a fluid called mutagen. And guess what? Mutagen also needs to be made in a sterile clean room. So let's get cracking. We'll need to brew bacteria from biochaff and distilled water, and biomass from regular water and biochaff. Combining these makes us bacterial sludge, which we can refine in a distillery with some tiny piles of nequadria dust that I make sure to make outside of the clean room for space. After refining the bacterial sludge, we can further distill it into mutagen and pipe that into the agar mixture to create raw growth medium. Quick pause of your regularly scheduled program for DJojo to have routing issues. And there we go. Raw growth medium needs to be heated in a fluid heater to create the sterile growth medium. Jesus. But sterile growth medium is only the base for wetware circuit boards, which is the base for the UV energy hatches, so let's make the boards. I think we're gonna need a circuit assembler inside of the sterile clean room to make the boards, and then we can easily encode all of the recipes needed for them. Truth be told, they're not even that expensive. Oh, wait, no. Wetware boards are made in the regular clean room, and of course a sterile clean room can't do regular clean room stuff, so remove the circuit assembler, put the recipe in the right spot. Finally, we have wetware boards, and that means we can make a data module. Oh, come! The data module needs to go in the sterile clean room? God, why? Fine! Add the circuit assembler back in the sterile clean room, redo the AE hookup, get the recipe encoded, and there! Data module. We can research the energy hatches. Except no, we can't, because in order for an HPCA to care about their network switches, we need a new component inside of them that replaces one of their coolers or computers, a bridging module. So we lose 32 computation per tick overall, but it's just enough to research, and finally, we've researched UV energy hatches. And I can't put the data module in our assembly line. Why? No, don't tell me that we need a data bank multi-block just to add one piece of data. Oh, fine. What's one more multi-block? Sure, it's expensive and annoying, but the benefit is at least that we can fit way more data into our assembly line, as a data bank's primary function is to combine multiple data hatches into one device, and also apparently to hold data modules. But God, after all that, after all those reactors and researches and meat, we can now make a new energy hatch, a UV energy hatch, hurtling us into the next tier of technology and beyond. Next stop, wetware circuit boards. And of course, the Stargate. Oh, and don't forget, we're not even done with reactors. I'll do it again. Sorry. It's okay. She's in frame! We have a blooper reel! Absolute cinema.